idea how much our children don't tell us, even in the most, in families where there's so much communication. When something like this happens, statistically, the child doesn't discuss it for a year to 2 years, and then it's only because somebody else has picked up on it, or because there's now been a violent incident. We actually had a case in our state, not far away from here, where a child planned a shooting based on religion and race. He had a full chart of who he was going to kill. He was killing several blacks, he was killing several Jews. And he had it all planned, and he had an arsenal. And it was only because a girl saw something, a Facebook, where he talked about something, and she told her mother. So in this case, and where it's more probable, is it's a bystander who might mention it to a parent. So one of the things we really need to pay attention to is, one, if your child's being bullied, do not blame yourself and do not blame your child. There are things we know exactly what to do to stop bullying, but it is not up to the child. It is, as Robin said, it's much more teaching. It's a whole school strategy where you teach the school that this will not be allowed, that the bully's going to be helped, the target's going to be helped, and that all the children are expected as bystanders to, one, not tolerate such behavior, but two, to automatically report it. And part of the culture and part of the problem is that kids nowadays think if you do share the information, that you're ratting on something. So they feel like, once again, instead of a sort of civic culture that we want the best in our environment, they're taught to keep it secret. So we have a big job, and 9/11 was a disaster, but one of the only secondary gains of it in our state, because we had so many people die and it was so close to us, is that the children wanted to be everyday heroes. And one of the things that happened, I remember distinctly a story of a kid in Stamford, Connecticut, who was a bully. And the day after 9/11, he went into the school counselor and he broke down. Because he understood that there was something in his behavior that was like a terrorist. Other children around this whole state understood immediately, metaphorically, that they wanted to be everyday heroes. And what so many kids in so many schools at that time went to was how could they stop bullying in their school? Because they realized they couldn't stop terrorism, but they understood the metaphor of being a bystander, particularly from that plane incident. But we've lost that culture, and it's something that we can model and promote and talk about, but the victim doesn't talk about it.
A lot about school culture and about having a plan, but there's nothing in any of our legislation that looks at adult on youth bullying. And one of the folks we work with at the Department of Education says that as many as 10% of her complaints are about adults bullying youth within the school setting. And so I think that's an area where what we need to look at in terms, just in general, in terms of how do you can't create a culture in which all youth are safe if the adults are not modeling that culture.
It's really great that you brought that up, and it actually is a good year, say next year, to actually try to amend and build in the teacher as the bully or adults as the bully. Because this year there's been so much discourse on how to make things full and whole and how to be accountable, that we may be able to do that. In Sweden, which is the model country that began to change other countries around bullying, in their law it includes the teachers.
That's brilliant.
There's a lot of
I think it's very interesting the extent to which LGBT youth will protect themselves by staying closeted. I'm a high school teacher.
Yeah.
And I was having a casual conversation after class one day with my kids, and I said, I have seniors. And I said, you wait until about 3-4 years after you graduate, how many kids will come out?
Right.
We have a great school. We have a very good, in general, a very good atmosphere. It does not happen in my classroom, that's for sure. But I said, in general, high school is not a super safe place for this.
Right.
You wait a few years, and these people will absolutely change. They're going to have these wonderful, just they're going to be themselves for the
Right.
first time in 20 years because they
And
feel safe for the first
One
time.
of the things that we find is that the kids who fit gender stereotypes, so the boys who are gentle and effeminate and the girls who are masculine, so the ones who fit the stereotypes, aren't given the luxury of hiding, or they don't have the choice around choosing to come out or not come out, because people have been targeting them and labeling them long before they had any idea who they were attracted to. And so the kids who can, will stop.
Hi, Marty Keena. I'm a 6th grade teacher at King Philip Middle School in West Hartford, and pretty much we're a systemic, we're trying to fight this, or at least deal with this issue on a systemic level. As a part of our morning advisories, we have teams and we have a homeroom, we call that morning advisory, and we talk about these issues on a daily basis. And then, built into our handbook, I'm kind of answering the question as to aren't the schools doing something here? But in our case, and I'm sure across the entire town, I know in the middle school and high school, there's a focus towards a much more understanding and at least bringing out the conversation so that kids can begin to talk about it openly and begin to have a forum where they can safely, with their advisors or perhaps with the guidance office, have an opportunity to discuss these issues. And within our handbook, we have this verification form where, the parent as well as the student has to sign it saying, hey, we've gone over the rules and what the expectations are. So we have that at least as a quasi-formal document. But then throughout the year when we're having these conversations, we have this feeling that King Philip or KP should be a safe zone, the KP safe zone. And then once we get involved with that, the kids sign a pledge. We won't bully, or we will be that individual hero who will come up and say something to that. And they earn, their little bracelet. They wear their KP Safe Zone bracelets and KP Safe Zone, and I took the pledge. So there's, a visual reinforcement to them saying, no, I'm part of this community. And I think, that's where it goes. Now, we're 3rd or 4th year into this stepstone. So, like, the 9th graders now are, bringing that thought process up to their freshman year. But, it'll take time, and we'll recycle it, and it's going to take generations, I think, to break down some of these, preordained stereotypes.
Yep.